it's designed to reduce the overhead and increase the profits. One of the benefits too of fractionals is like, it doesn't take 3 to 6 months to hire a fractional. We can do it in about 3 weeks, developing those rare and valuable skills that make you so good that people can't ignore you. What gets measured gets improved, and what gets measured and reported on gets improved exponentially.
Let's talk about some biggest advantages of hiring somebody as fractional executive.
I'm going to go with 3 big ones.
Welcome, everybody. This is an Hour of Innovation podcast, and I'm your host with Lyoshin. Mike Malloy joins me today to discuss fractional leadership and fractional executives. Welcome, Mike. Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we jump in, would you mind telling us a little bit about your background and story and the work that you do?
Absolutely. So I have previous experience as a Deloitte consultant, traveling sunglasses salesman, startup CEO, incubator program director, and adjunct professor at Georgetown. I'm passionate about being a relentlessly generous and enthusiastically fun force for good in the world. And I might sprinkle in a couple of dad jokes here in the podcast today. And I focus my time on helping entrepreneurs buy back their freedom and time to focus on what matters most to them, both professionally and personally. But just to be a little vulnerable with you for a minute, as a result of my mom passing away in the fall of 2021, a week after we found out my wife was pregnant with our first son, our chief cuteness officer, I realized that I couldn't be the change I wanted to be in the world alone, and found myself at the forefront of the future of work during the Great Resignation, quiet quitting era, which led me to be all in that the future of work is fractional. Therefore, I'm the CEO of Malloy Industries, which creates more time and freedom for CEOs by giving their undesirable hats to vetted fractional executives and CEOs who want to scale their B2B sales from 1 to 2 million up to 10 to 20 million in annual revenue usually benefit the most from the Malloy match with a trustworthy fractional sales executive.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, tough times and finding, way to go through that. So
everything happens for a reason, God's got a plan.
Yeah. So let's start with defining what is fractional leadership, fractional executives, and also how is it different from freelance, for example?
Yep. So, the freelance kind of gig economy workers might be coming into work on a project, solve some tasks, delegate some admin things, whereas fractional executives are coming in to be that executive leader in the sales department or marketing or HR operations. Many times when you hire a freelancer or even like a mid-level manager, you have to train them a lot on how to do the job, what success looks like, give them systems, processes, playbooks, frameworks, methodologies. On the flip side, a fractional executive is somebody who has 10 to 40 years of experience that's joining your company to bring their existing proven playbooks and methodologies to help you build those systems and processes. They're actually going to train your company how to better operate and execute that department in the business. And what's great about fractional executives is you don't have to invest in the full-time salary, benefits, all of the overhead that goes into, and usually is in the 6-figure range, somebody with their level of expertise. You're just paying for the expertise you need on a month-to-month basis.
I see. Okay, so it's basically part-time executive or senior leadership role that you get in.
Yep, and you kind of get their wealth of knowledge, diverse networks, strategic insights, without all the other things that might go into hiring somebody of their caliber full-time.
Right. Okay. And then let's talk a little bit about the story, like when this become a thing that people start hiring executives like that. And also, what are the most common positions that people are looking for?
Yeah, so the OG or the original kind of fractional role was really that fractional CFO. As companies were growing, they need the strategic leadership in the finance department, but not for 40 hours a week. It might be, hey, 1 or 2 months is really busy as we're getting ready to go out and fundraise or, doing year-end strategic planning. And these fractional CFOs have been around since like the 70s and 80s. And so what has transitioned a lot in the past 4 years because of a small global pandemic that changed the whole way we do work, people realized that they could bring in a fractional chief revenue officer or chief marketing officer or head of HR, whether you call it a chief people officer, whatever the titles might be, and only need them for 1 or 2 days a week. Because at the stage of the company where, hey, we've got product market fit, maybe we're doing 1 or 2 million in revenue, but we're not doing 100 million in revenue. We're not a massive company that, can keep that person and that department busy for 40, 60 hours a week. And so I would say sales, marketing, HR, operations, and finance are kind of the 5 departments that we see the most common needs, especially the HR side. Like when you're between 5 to 50 employees, that's a great time for kind of an on-demand HR director. And you can do it on an hourly basis. Like, hey, let's get a bucket of 40 hours this month, maybe 20 hours next month. The first month, usually there's more work with the onboarding assessment, kind of putting your business up on the mechanics rack, looking at the engine, all the things that are missing. And then we can prioritize some quick wins, come up with a strategic roadmap. And once you have like the employee handbook in place and some of the fundamentals, then it's more of like ongoing maintenance. And if you're going to hire some people and maybe need help with position descriptions, sourcing, recruiting, interviewing candidates, hey, that's busier than, hey, we're not hiring anybody for the next 3 months. We just need your cell phone to be the number people call if there's an HR issue. Okay, cool. We can do that too.
Yeah. So I think it makes sense more for smaller companies like startups, right? Or even like solopreneurs that need help part-time. But I know sometimes people but get in like a consultant's help for short term. Yep. Those are kind of project-based as well, right? So which companies will benefit the most from fractional executives?
Yeah, great question. I would say solopreneur might be a little early. And one of the things that I've learned over the past 4 years doing this is that it's really valuable for the company to have reached product market fit, so that when somebody comes in on a fractional basis, they're effectively using that energy versus that, hey, we still don't really know who buys this thing or how we're going to market it or sell it. The CEO, the founder hasn't had success selling it. That's often not a good time. It's kind of too early for a fractional to come in. I would say the sweet spot is in the kind of 5 to 150 employees, with a small asterisk that we do have a publicly traded company that's one of our clients right now. And it's because they both had some layoffs and had some people quit in their sales department and then knew that they needed help quickly. So one of the benefits too of fractionals is it doesn't take 3 to 6 months to hire a fractional. We can do it in about 3 weeks from first meeting to scope out what the problem is, what do you need help with, to, hey, here's 3 candidates that we've already vetted and are in our roster of 317, I think, at this point. And then we meet a week later to say, okay, who was your favorite? Let's finalize timeline, scope, and budget. You want to start Monday or next Monday? So that speed to come in and then fill the gap, because it might take 6 months to hire a new person in that role. But you can't kind of have that seat on the bus empty for that long.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
And you had asked a question too about the difference between consultant and fractional. And so consultants are usually like, hey, I'm an external person. I have my external email address and I make you a nice PowerPoint presentation. I was a Deloitte consultant, so I get that game. Fractionals are embedded in your team. They're going to get a company email address. They're going to come to staff meetings. They will usually not have an end date. They're also usually not full-time, but they do represent the company. They can lead the team, which outside consultants are rarely kind of in those roles.
Yeah, I see. Okay. So are there any industries that hire in this more than others? I would imagine it may be tech primarily, or have you seen, or do you have clients from other industries?
Yep. So tech is definitely the biggest industry. We specialize on helping B2B SaaS CEOs. Whatever type of technology, whether it's, fintech or something in healthcare or ed tech, it doesn't matter that much. But the fact that there's some form of technology that's being sold and that you're selling business to business, it's not usually that popular of a model for direct to consumer things. If you're selling glasses for, $20 or $200, I haven't seen much need in the retail industry for the fractionals. Similarly with restaurants or food related things, there hasn't been a lot of demand. And I say that too, I've tried to do some projects in those industries, haven't really worked out, both in terms of it's not a good fit. Sometimes they need people in person. So I guess that's another variable as well. Like if the whole company all sits in an office together for 40 plus hours a week, maybe this isn't a good fit, but for any team that is hybrid or remote first, it's a phenomenal fit. And you save a ton of money. Like when I was a Deloitte consultant, people were paying me to fly out Monday morning, go stay in a hotel all week till Thursday and fly home, versus you roll out of bed, you have a 5-second commute to your office, and then you can work for a couple hours and log off, go play with the kids, and or work for another client that you work with on a fractional basis.
Yeah. Okay. So what about, let's talk about some biggest advantages of hiring somebody as fractional executive. You mentioned a couple of them, but maybe let's list them specifically.
I'm going to go with 3 big ones. It's time, it's money, and it's peace of mind. And so the ability to kind of delegate and thrive as the CEO, there's this time-saving power of fractional executives where instead of spending 4 to 8 to 16 hours a week on a certain part of the business, you're able to spend 1 or 2 hours a week on that because you spend an hour typically in a one-on-one with the fractional executive leader, and they drive that meeting. They come in with the agenda. They're leading this team, the various projects they're working on, and will bring to you decision points or, yellow, red flags. Hey, we got to address this thing. What do you think we should do? But you don't have to be in every sales call. You don't have to run a weekly sales pipeline meeting. You're not managing all of those direct reports, which really frees up your time to focus on what matters most to you personally and professionally. The business may need you to go out and fundraise and be doing the investor kind of dog and pony show, which is a full-time job in and of itself. You may also want to leave work at 4:30 to go coach your little kid's soccer team, and if you're stuck in the office working 60, 80-hour weeks, you're not able to do that. And so I think that's a big transition, is freeing up time. And then the second one that I would say is money. It's designed to reduce the overhead and increase the profits. Wu-Tang said, cash rolls everything around me. That's what we're trying to do, and trying to help you get the benefit of this expertise without the monthly overhead or annual overhead of, the full salary with all the benefits and compensation or commission as well. And if you think about like a traditional headhunter or executive search firm, they might charge 33% of the first year's salary, which could be 50, 60, 70K. At Malloy Industries, we only charge a one-time $3,300 fee if and only if you decide to hire one of the fractional executives. So we understand that the benefit here is that it doesn't cost you an arm and a leg to find great talent. We're bringing them in at a very affordable rate. And then you can flex it month to month as needed. So it's not a multi-year, hey, this is my full-time person. It's usually we start at 10K for the first month and then can go between 5 to 15K on a month-to-month basis as people need. And then the third big benefit I was going to mention is just the peace of mind, that these fractional executives can come in and really drive your business growth, especially in the areas that are not your zone of genius. It's not your unique ability to, create a fancy marketing campaign that fills the top of the funnel, or to lead a bunch of SDRs, sales development reps, and account execs through the process, or to set up the hiring guidelines and SOPs or employee handbook. Most people who build businesses do not also write employee handbooks well, and so to know that, hey, that part of it is led by somebody way smarter than me, gives you that peace of mind that, all right, cool, I'm here if they need me. I can still add my color commentary or, personality around the culture, because as you take off some of these hats to give to people, you're still the chief culture officer. And like how you show up and communicate with people matters a lot. But knowing that you have kind of grown-ups that have been doing this for a few decades can make you sleep a little bit easier at night, and also instill confidence across the leadership team, with your investors, your board, knowing that, okay, hey, we've got some really impressive people here. Even if you're not paying them full time, they're still on the org chart. They're still, a core part of the team leading those departments.
Yeah. It's kind of reminding me of that. Maybe you heard it, but somebody was interviewing Jeff Bezos, and he said that you need senior leadership people to only make few very smart, very high impact decisions, maybe in a day or in a month or whatever. So when you hire in a fractional executive like that, you're really looking for them to make those really smart, really impactful decisions, and not for that busy day-to-day work, right? Because that talent you can get for much cheaper, and they can just crank the work, the tasks every day. So
Yep. And another thing that I learned from Jeff Bezos was the concept of like two-way doors and one-way doors as decisions. And so fractional, we say leaders can help identify, is this a two-way door? And by two-way door, I mean, you can go through it and decide to do this, but then come back if it wasn't the right decision. Versus I have a large Celtic cross tattooed on my back shoulder. That was a one-way door. That thing's not coming off. I got it in 2007 and, I love it. And my brother has one too. I'm glad it's back there, but, can't change that. And so when you're thinking about business, a lot of things are two-way doors. And one of the things that fractionals are really good at is identifying like, what is the problem we're trying to solve here? All right, let's identify 3 potential solutions, A, B, and C. I'm going to recommend B, but hey, CEO, let me tell you all 3, walk you through our thought process, and let's make sure we're in alignment. And if you want me to do C, we can do that. But it's very different than like a mid-level manager who might just say, hey, boss, I've got this problem. What do we do? That's hard, versus I've thought through it. 1 problem, 3 options, 1 recommendation. And pro tip for everybody listening, that's a great way to be a leader and train your team of whatever level they are to don't bring me problems, bring me 3 options and 1 you recommend. And that's going to save a lot of time and cognitive resources for the CEO.
Yeah, for sure. So what are some of the challenges I imagine there will be so people know and how they can prepare themselves?
Yeah, great question. Communication is one of the biggest challenges and opportunities. If done right, makes it a super effective relationship. When done poorly, very stressful. There's ambiguity. You don't know, like, hey, Ma, the meatloaf, like, what are you doing back there? You're just not sure. And this is something we've learned over 3.5 years of doing these fractional executive projects. And one of the ways we have mitigated some of that risk is formalizing an end of week report the Malloy way that all of our fractionals send to the client as well as to me and our chief of staff every Friday with, hey, here's what I did this week with the key meetings and action items. Here's what's on the calendar for next week, priorities, the key meetings, and here's where I'm stuck. I need help. I need access to this system. You said you were going to review this thing, or I need this other deliverable. And then here's any upcoming scheduling constraints. So if the client doesn't know, hey, I'm actually taking all of Thanksgiving week off, or next Tuesday my son, has a doctor's appointment, so I won't be available, and I can't go to that important sales meeting with the future customer, so I need you to lead it. Like, don't make that a surprise the day of. Let's highlight it 2, 3, 4 weeks in advance as soon as you know. That is something we found has kind of transformed this relationship, has mitigated a lot of that communication risk of not knowing what's going on. And we also strongly encourage fractionals and the client to have a weekly 1-hour meeting that the fractional will lead and kind of run through the key strategic things they're working on, the decision points, places where they need some help, some guidance from the executive leaders. It can be the CEO, it can be other people, in the C-suite as well in those meetings. And even before an entrepreneur hires a fractional executive, it's the communication in that interviewing process. Like, we deliberately don't say, hey, here's one person, they're going to be great, you should definitely work with them. We say, hey, here's 3 candidates. They're all really smart. They could all do the work, but one of them is going to be a better communication, interpersonal vibe, energy fit with you. And that's what I want you to really look for in those interviews is like, who do you feel comfortable? Who do you want to kind of roll up your sleeves, be in the trenches with, hopefully for the next several months or years?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then what are the pros and cons for people who want to be fractional executives?
Yeah, I think autonomy, relatedness, and feeling like you're adding value in work are 3 of the primary drivers, or the self-determination theory Cal Newport told me about. And so there's a ton of autonomy as a fractional. You're not told what to do when you are a 1099, you're not a W-2. So they can't say, hey, you must sit in this cube and wear, pants and dress shoes for 5 hours or 8 hours a day from 9 to 5, the con of that is like time management is something you got to be kind of good at, and you're going to be the captain of your own ship, especially if you have, 2, 3, 4 clients that you're working with. So being thoughtful about how do you block time on your calendar, setting boundaries is also important. Like we have in all of our contracts with everybody on both the fractional and the client side, kind of joint accountabilities that, hey, we'll get back to you via text or phone within 4 hours during regular business hours. We'll respond to emails within 2 days, and we will not be available on weekends and during dedicated family time. And like family is very, very important. That's part of a core value for us is, we have a 2.5-year-old chief cuteness officer that his whole business is basically helping Max, figure out his way in life and be able to provide for him. And when I'm done work for them, I'm done. I don't want to be texting you while I'm trying to, do the bedtime routine over here. And so I think that ties into, as a fractional, like how hard are those boundaries you want to communicate? How blurry are they? It's up to you, but like, it's nice to have some time off and just some compartments where like I don't have to check my phone. I don't have notifications on my phone. I try to not even have my phone on me, when I log off work. I think another pro for the fractionals is like you can make a livable wage and not have to work 80 hours, 60 hours, maybe not even 40 hours a week. If you have 2 or 3 clients for 1 or 2 days a week, that can be pretty fulfilling. I think one of the challenges for fractionals is the business development side and like finding new projects. And especially if they're not a fractional sales executive, they probably hate sales and business development, and that is not their strength zone. And that's one of the reasons a lot of them come to us. And we have so many HR people and operations, marketing, executive coaches, folks in our roster is like, we're a business development channel. I'm out here identifying B2B SaaS CEOs and other entrepreneurs who need expertise, wanting to take off one of those hats that doesn't fit that well. And so we match people with opportunities to help them do what they do best. And then we also handle the back office, the contracts, the invoicing, everything. So like, really just go do a great job at that thing you're really great at and let us take care of the rest.
Yeah. So you mentioned communication as a great skill for fractional executive, or just in general for both parties. What are some of the skills for people that you're looking for when you're hiring or when you like take into your agency?
Yeah, great question. I think the interpersonal kind of soft skills matter a lot. The ability to build rapport in a virtual setting, because like I'm at home in my house right now, and this is where I do my work, and that's where most of our folks work. So we're not like able to hang out by the water cooler as you would in an old school office. But over Zoom, like, are they paying attention? I always say that the eyebrows are like incitometers. So like when the eyebrows go up, ooh, people are interested and engaging. Like, pay attention when I'm getting to know people. Like, hey, are you interested? Or, oh, let me just look at my phone. Oh yeah, this. I got that. Yeah, okay, cool. Like, I'm gonna read that real quickly. And what's been really fascinating and inspiring as we built this roster of fractional executives, it started with like 10 of my buddies back in 2021. I was like, hey guys, like, I think there's a there. Like, I'm gonna go find some projects. I don't want to do it all myself. Like, you guys in? I was like, yeah, sure. These are people I've been in the trenches with from BC, Georgetown, Deloitte, some of my Ultimate Frisbee teammates, folks. And as it's grown, it got to 50 and then it was 100 and started to be a few friends of friends. Now it's about 50-50 folks that I have long-term relationships with and people who have come into the roster through relationships that we built through other members. People know me now as like the fractional executive guy. So like when somebody else in their life is like, oh yeah, I'm a fractional executive now. They're like, oh, I've heard that word. I got a buddy, Mike. He talks about stuff all the time. Like, you should talk to him. And so actually right after this podcast recording, we have a monthly exploring collaborations meeting where it's a roundtable. We host it once a month with people who are interested in working with us. And this is part of our kind of vetting and screening process where I'll walk through the business and what it is that we do and, how does this work? But I want to get to know them, and everybody at the beginning is kind of introducing themselves. What are their areas of expertise? We have a pretty lengthy application form. It takes about half an hour or so to fill out. And then we'll look at the references, like who referred them, how they get in here. And at first, there is no project. Like when someone joins us, I'm almost never like, hey, I have this thing for you to do next week. It's like, all right, cool, we got you in the list. And when we find something for you that matches not only your value prop, but also who your ideal client profile is and the industry and the type of thing that they need. Okay, cool, this is a great match. We are very hands-on if we haven't worked with you before. And like throughout the process, how are you communicating with us? How are you communicating with the client during the interviews? We use Slack for kind of internal chat as well. So like we'll chat with folks as they're going through this process. And then I built the chief of staff who helps a lot on the client customer success side. And we recently hired a client service manager to help with the relationships with fractionals and clients, especially with clients who have more than one fractional. So an interesting new problem that we have been solving in the past few months is, hey, people don't just have one now. Some clients have 2, 3, or 4 fractionals from us. And there is a higher level of management across the different projects. And like, we've got one with like 2 people in operations, someone in HR, someone in marketing. We want them to know what they're doing. So it's not like 4 individual shingles, but, the whole Malloy team is helping us across the thing. And there are different stakeholders in the company that they interact with. It's going to help overseeing that and making sure, everybody's sending their end of week reports. People know what everybody else is working on. If there's ways that we can, 1 + 1 = 3 or 1 + 1 + 1 = 14, that's what we're trying to do as we grow within some of our clients on the expansion side.
Yeah. So, and also, do you have some sort of training when you onboard people to your agency, rather than just when you're sending them to the projects and clients?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
We have some things that we train them on. We call it the Malloy way. We'll trademark there. Just like, hey, here's how we approach these types of things. We also encourage them to bring their own like methodologies, frameworks, expertises from their experience as well, while recognizing like, hey, here's how we want to communicate with clients. Here's how we, want to be thoughtful and be relentlessly generous. So like our number one core value here at Malloy Industries is to be relentlessly generous. Like, how can we give and give and give and add so much value on the front end to know that, hey, the math is going to work itself out on the back end. We're not, quid pro quo or like matching like, oh, I helped you with this, you got me with that thing. Like, no, what do you need? You need that? You need that? Okay, great. Like, I can't tell you how many people like I just help everybody I try to interact with, and I add value and you sprinkle those seeds, and then, 6 months later, we just landed, a $40,000 project through somebody you referred, but I didn't help that woman 6 months ago because I knew, that's definitely going to come through. That's kind of our approach. And another one of our core values is enthusiastically fun. And we've made it this far without me slipping in a dad joke. So let me just ask you, what do you call Chewbacca when he has chocolate stuck in his fur?
I don't know.
Well, it's a chocolate chip Wookiee.
Chocolate chip Wookiee, okay. Yeah. I you kind of mentioned this in the beginning, but I forgot that you're a big fan of dad jokes, and you have a newsletter with them that people can sign up.
That's fun. I got one more for you. So Luke and Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi, they go out for sushi. And Obi-Wan, the master, he's got the chopsticks, eating the sushi, no problem, it's delicious. Luke cannot figure out the chopsticks. He's dropping the sushi in the soy sauce, a huge mess. Finally, Obi-Wan goes, Luke, use the forks. So, and I'm gonna close this out. My third joke here. What did the sushi say to the bumblebee?
What?
Wasabi.
Yeah. Well, for all the nerds out there, for Star Wars fans, right?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So, so we talked about the skills, and I actually kind of forgot what I was going to say about the skills. So, for the career path for the fractional, are you looking more for like people who are, you mentioned you're looking for people who have a lot of experience, but what about if people don't have like 40 years of experience? They're more younger people, right?
Yep.
Are there things they can do to start their career in this area?
There are, and I will acknowledge that like most people in their 20s are probably not a good example of a fractional executive, but they could be more in that freelancer kind of gig economy. And I'll also highlight the fact that the average millionaire has 7 income streams. And so from an early age, if you start to think about how do I diversify my income, so I'm not only having one source of income from one full-time job that, pays me whatever as a W-2, but like, what are you doing at nights and weekends? Are there things you could do on Upwork or Fiverr or the Mom Project, which is a great place for, moms who left the workforce to raise a family and now want to get back into it. They do a lot of great things there. And learning some of those time management skills of like how to have different clients and maybe do some work off the side of your desk. We're not saying like quit your day job and, go all in on fractional. Like, keep even when I started doing this, I still was running the incubator for a few months before I transitioned into this. And, I will say being 25 and single, quitting Deloitte to go sell sunglasses was a lot easier than being 34 and married and, making a presentation for my wife about the financial plans and, hey, here's all the things we can do and, what's going to come through with it. But the other part of it is really developing those rare and valuable skills that make you so good that people can't ignore you. And I think that's something early on in your career. Like when you're young, you work to learn. When you're older, you work to earn. And so fractional executives, they're making, good money, providing a lot of value. If you're in your 20s, like what are jobs that maybe you get paid 5 or 10K a year less, but you're going to learn so much more. And your manager is like who you want to be when you grow up. That's great because people don't quit companies, they quit managers. And so that is another thing to watch out for is like if that relationship starts to sour or you're like, I don't really like this guy, girl, it's just not who I want to be working for. That's when, you start to apply other things on the side. So I think there are different paths and it really does come around to the skills that you're learning, how you have a lifelong growth mindset, stretching outside that comfort zone. And also, I'm very guilty of this and it's paid huge dividends is I'm a hoarder of helpful resources. Anytime I read an article, I see a PDF, a template, a tool, I'm like, yeah, man, let me save that, put it in my Dropbox, my Google Drive. We have a massive CEO scaling toolbox of dozens and dozens of tools that, when, hey, this is the thing that they need a hammer for. Yeah, I got that size hammer. Okay, here you go. I'm happy to share some of those. Maybe I'll give you some in the show notes you can share afterwards as well.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah. I always look for some like those life hacks or work hacks, productivity tools and things like that. So they're all great things to learn, And especially these days with AI coming on, many tools are going to be available for, doing all these sort of things really quick. So what would be, from company's perspective, what would be the best time to start looking for fractional executive to hire?
Yeah, I would say right now while you're listening to this podcast is probably the best time to start thinking about it. If you think about the modern customer journey, there's kind of problem unaware to problem aware to solution aware. And I'd say we're talking right now about what the solution is to product aware, like, okay, Malloy Industries exists, and then most aware, hey, this is something I really need. If you change your mindset from instead of how do I solve this problem to who can solve this problem, and there's a great book by Dan Sullivan and Ben Hardy called Who, Not How. That is a huge mindset shift that makes you realize you don't need to know how to do all the things or have the time, attention, energy, effort to do it. But you can then go and look for somebody who's way smarter than you who can come in and say, hey, I know I need help with this X and this part of my business. You don't have to have 12 months of work planned out for them. Even if it's just 1 to 3 months of, hey, let's get started here. Let's see what it's like. And then inevitably, if you bring somebody in, they're adding a lot of value and helping, you're going to think of other things. Oh, I have that who now. Like, they can help with this thing too. They can help with that thing. I've grown my internal team in the past year from me and one chief of staff to we now have 10 people on our delightfully tiny team. They're all fractional and they have different skill sets. So we, bring them in for different things as and when problems arise that they're the best who for it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. People keep mentioning this, and I hear this all the time. Like, if you want to be successful, if you want to grow, you don't have to learn everything by yourself. You just have to go find somebody who can do it for you. It costs money, yes, it does, but at the end of the day, they can do it really quick, and the growth will come afterwards.
And ideally, they do it quickly and also teach you and or your team and or your institutional knowledge base how to do it in the future. So it's kind of teaching you how to fish. And in some cases, like, you never want to be the person holding the fishing rod, but you do want to have a detailed SOP on how to cast the fishing rod. So current team members and people you haven't even hired yet can follow those instructions to then, run Facebook ad campaigns, for example, or set up Google Analytics or, whatever the systems and processes might be.
Yeah. Do you have any interesting story when somebody came into the company, did something exciting? If you can mention it, that would be great.
Yeah, so actually, one client we worked with, they had missed their monthly revenue goal every month in Q1, and this was kind of April. I think April 15th they hired us last year, feeling the pressure, and so the fractional executive immediately came in, kind of interviewed the executive leadership team. It was a fractional chief revenue officer, and interviewed the 9 sales reps to identify where were their gaps in communication and sales. And within the first month, created like a customized, color-coded dashboard for the CEO, which for the first time in the whole time she'd been running the business for almost a decade, actually gave her visibility into the sales funnel, the buying activity on each account, and the performance on each of the sales reps, which put a spotlight on which accounts and reps needed more attention so they could actually hit their goal in May. And one of the unexpected things that they diagnosed was that the root cause of so much of their sales issues was the lack of faith and kind of distrust in their CRM. It's kind of like garbage in, garbage out. They've been using it for 2 years, but nobody in the company trusted it. They didn't have a good way, because there was no way to like convert everybody into believers for this system. And so the CRO got buy-in from all 38 employees across the company to migrate to a new CRM system, and successfully rolled that out, helped train each of the departments. And as a result of all of this work, the company hit their sales quota in May and has exceeded it every single month since then. And as we talked about earlier, like what are the benefits? It's time, money, and peace of mind. Boy, oh boy, did that CEO benefit from the peace of mind of feeling confident that, hey, the sales team and department is going in the right direction. And oh, by the way, we're hitting our revenue goals. And she didn't have to be in as many one-on-ones with the sales team. And so this was a 6-month engagement that they invested $60K and received over $600,000 in return on investment, with increased revenue and decreasing some of the sales costs as well. So like that was a pretty huge win. And again, we wouldn't have expected from the front end that the CRM issues was really the root cause that we were able to fix for them.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great example. I was looking for something like that. That's hopefully that's motivational for people.
Yeah. Well, and part of the story there too is like bringing in someone with a unique perspective to like look at your business from a different angle that doesn't have the biases and like isn't so close to it and been in it for years. Like they can pretty quickly tell you that, hey, this part of the baby is ugly, politely, and like you are missing an entire, you don't have a marketing engine. There's nothing doing marketing. Like we need to build this. We need to have certain metrics that we're tracking and, ways that we can measure. What gets measured gets improved, and what gets measured and reported on gets improved exponentially.
Yeah. This even happens when, like in my job, for example, when we hire somebody new, they come in the first week or two, they tell us like, hey, I see problem here. Why is it done this way here? They immediately notice things that we're already blind to because we're so used to things. And that's another huge benefit. Yeah,
absolutely. And we built out a tool called the Sales Scalability Scorecard that looks at 6 parts of the business, like the business model clarity, your sales processes and methodologies, your CRM, the performance metrics and analysis, like are you actively tracking conversion rates, average contract size, sales cycle length, customer acquisition cost, lifetime value, etc. The sales team and training, do they have the capacity, skills, resources required to address the customer's needs and move people through the funnel? And then the sales technology tools, like what does the tech stack look like? What are you using to automate and streamline various activities? And by looking at those 6 pillars and going through the scorecard, we're able to pretty quickly assess what do we need to do in month 1 for some low-hanging fruit and quick wins. And then over the next 3 to 6 months, where can we create the biggest impact? Small hinges swing large doors. And so sometimes it's just small tweaks that will create a outsized, long-lasting impact.
Yeah. So you're primarily focusing on sales executives, right? You have some other people too, but that's kind of the primary focus.
At this point, that's our focus. And just to share the origin story, like we started with all fractionals in every business function, in every industry, for all types of businesses, because we were learning and kind of figuring it out as we went. A little over a year ago, we niched down to say, hey, B2B SaaS is definitely our preferred industry. And we've also found that we've had the most success in placing fractional sales executives since my days as a traveling sunglasses salesman. Like I'm a sales guy. I enjoy it as well. I'm learning more about like the HR side because we've been helping. We've got 3 HR clients in the past 2 months. So we have kind of an on-demand HR director that we can bring in. You get a bucket of hours. We can use it as needed. And I will defer to the HR experts to talk through like what are those things they might help with more so than me waxing poetically on it. But we've also done a few like COO, CMOs, and fractional CFOs. So everything from like a bookkeeper, accounting, CFO, like people need a finance team. We have some partners that we can refer in who, again, like can be flexible on a month-to-month basis. What do you need for that department? So we have the human capital and the fractionals across every business function that you might imagine, including technology and AI and supply chain and strategy. But we don't really utilize them as much because most of the people we're talking to are, selling something B2B and need help on the sales side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for that's funny because probably there is a trend that SaaS companies are started by tech people, and tech people mostly terrible at sales.
Yeah.
So they need help the most in this area. Marketing and sales is totally opposite from being technical person.
Yeah, they love the product, the engineering. Like they'll do that all day, and like what I think is also unique about like my background. Like I got my master's in computer science. Like I'm a pretty nerdy guy. It's not just Star Wars jokes. Like I used to jam on code, and I understand this whole thing. But I also realize like that's not my unique ability. Like what brings me alive is the relationship building, is the problem solving, the pattern matching of like, oh, okay, you need a circle hole. Like I have these 3 circles. Let me try that. Oh, actually, you need a triangle. Let me, bring in some triangles to help with that, and really making those transformational connections so that the really smart people in my network can make really smart, impactful decisions for their businesses.
Yeah. What are some of the surprising things you find in with this model for hiring fractional?
Great question. I think one of the biggest surprises is that more people aren't using it. That they don't understand this is even an option. And that goes to the both like problem unaware and then solution unaware. And if people are like, oh, I just need somebody on my team, or I just need to hire somebody who can do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, like that's a lot for one person. And if you hire this like generalist mid-level manager, you're going to pay them as much as you could pay 2 or 3 experts to come in for 1 day a week each and kind of solve those things in a more scalable, sustainable way. I think that's the biggest one. And so, I'm a big advocate to promote that fractional is the future of work and to create that awareness so people are at least considering it when they're looking at, hey, what do we need to solve this? Or what's our hiring plan look like for next year? Maybe in Q1 and Q2, it's a fractional in this department. And depending on how that goes, we either keep that rolling or, hey, we're making more money. So we do have, 150K. Let's bring in somebody full time for that role.
Did you ever happen to have a case when fractional became full time?
Yep, we've had a couple of those cases. It's not our core business model, but we have had a few, and it's nice for everybody involved. It's kind of like a try before you buy. What is it like to work with this person? And what often happens is like maybe they start at 8 or 16 hours a week, maybe 8, and then it goes to 16, and then it's 24, and then they're like, hey, like we got more work, and like if you've got capacity, and you want to do this. I really like you. You really like it's cool. Okay, cool. Let's do it. And I mentioned earlier, like a headhunter charges 33% of that first year total comp just to like get them started. You can try before you buy as long as you want. And, we do have hey, we'll charge 15% if you want to hire them full time. That's really protecting us just because like our asset is the human capital and you just de-risked it for 6 months while you guys are working together. And now, we can't staff this person on other clients. But yeah, we're flexible, and we've also had cases where the fractional has been there and they want to hire somebody full time, but they're not interested. Maybe they have 2 other clients, and what we can do and have done is help write the position description, source, interview, vet, hire, onboard, train a new full-time leader, and then hand them the baton as we kind of ride off into the sunset.
Yeah. Okay, great. So we're coming to an end here. What would be your final advice for people? First, people who looking for hiring fractional, and then for people who looking to become fractional as their career path, I guess.
Yeah, I would say for both sides of that marketplace, like send me an email. Mike at MalloyIndustries.com. Like, this is what we do. We built this marketplace to help people explore those options. We save a lot of the headaches and time and effort of, like, if you post on LinkedIn, hey, I'm looking for a fractional sales leader, you might get all sorts of various responses and people who may or may not be qualified or good fits. We have 317 in our roster, and we'll pick the best 3. And even if we can't help you, we'll be relentlessly generous. We'll make connections to other people or resources, or share some do-it-yourself templates. I made a note too. I'll share the CEO Scaling Toolbox. I also have some meeting agendas that we use for all types of meetings that we'll put in the show notes. And if you want to be a fractional, I will say I'm not the best place to go if you've never done fractional work, because I don't want to have to train you on how to do it. But if this is something you've been doing for several years, you understand how to kind of balance different clients and are looking for another potential business development channel, hit me up. There is a resource, Voyager U. You Google Voyager U. They do like fractional training for new fractionals. They have like a 1-hour course. They have a 6-week course, things to help you understand kind of how to set up your own fractional business along the way.
Okay, cool. Great. Thank you, Mike, very much. It's a lot of good information. I learned some new things. This is not something you hear about a lot these days. So that was great to learn from you. Thank you very much.
Yep, my pleasure, Vid. And if people want to connect with me on LinkedIn, feel free. Mike Malloy, little sunglass emoji. And our website is Malloy Industries, MalloyIndustries.com. MalloyIndustries.com/pod. We'll have some kind of resources there for podcast listeners.
Okay, great. Sounds good. I'll add all these links to the description. Thank you very much. We'll talk later.
Thanks, Vid.
Bye.